But I noticed that my schedule can be so demanding, so filled with really important things that I don't have time to actually process. And our mind is going to find a way to process whether we like it or not. So maybe, and as always, I'll throw myself under the bus. You might be waking up at 2, 3 in the morning and you might, have a difficult time going back to sleep. Do I have a belief that I must be the one doing this activity because I'm the only one who can do this? Do I have a deeper belief that I'm the one who has to do this activity because I can't trust someone else to do this? Am I the only one who can do this activity because I haven't found somebody to do this activity yet and I need to? There are very few things that only you can do. Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast, the show where we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies all in one place. I'm your host, Julie Holly, and I am always grateful to have you joining me here, especially every Monday. I feel these are really special days where you and I have an opportunity to have a conversation that's just us having a casual conversation about topics of substance and meaning. And today we're going to talk about why you can't sleep at night. I'm going to share a couple of stories because, wow, I can tell you I actually have had some sleepless nights recently, and they were very helpful, very informative, and I think they're going to support you and probably someone in your life really powerfully. You know how it goes. Before we dive on in, I want to give you a couple of cool updates. First of all, I want to just give a super shout out to my friends over at Directed IRA. Directed IRA allows you to take control of your retirement to invest in what you know with a self-directed IRA. Super Ed Steve and I did recently swap custodians, as they're called, of our self-directed retirement accounts because the fees were 4 times as much as what we now pay at Directed IRA. I've been collaborating with my friends over at Directed IRA for over a year now, and I love how they care for our investors and how simply the process is. It's just really streamlined, very simple, and there's always somebody real to talk to and answer your questions, which you're going to find in just a few moments when we dive into our topic today, that I value that even more. If you head over to Directed IRA, you can get your first year for only $99 when you use the promo code CONSCIOUS99. It's a great deal. Super awesome value. But more than that, it's really more of a bonus because they're just so awesome and they're so caring. I also want to give a super shout out. I was reviewing the podcast over the last week. 2 shout outs, actually. Shout out number 1 goes to you, our amazing listeners. I do this, I create this podcast for you. I've been creating this podcast for almost 5 years now, dedicated, disciplined every single week, and it's worth it. And as I went through over on Apple Podcasts, I was looking at reviews, and I'm just so blessed by the reviews that you have left because they've culminated. And quite frankly, you may have felt this, conscious investor, but I really went through kind of a slump, kind of a transition. And maybe you didn't feel it so much. I'm pretty transparent. I'm never trying to hide it, but I felt it. And I was going through this internal conflict of direction and where do I go and what do I do and how do I do it? And then I go to and I I read your reviews and I see the ratings that you leave. And I'm like, I am exactly where I need to be. I am doing exactly what I need to do. So I want to just thank you so much. Fred recently left a review and he says, amazing podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed the podcast. Excellent guests and amazing conversation. Julie does a fantastic job as host and she is an amazing interviewer. I highly recommend that you subscribe to the podcast today. It's people like you, Fred, and so many other of you amazing conscious investors who honestly, this is why this is such a special space, because it's not just me on this side of the mic talking away. You take time and you reciprocate, and And you know what it's like, conscious investor. Everyone is going to go through ebbs and flows. We all have that experience as part of the life experience. And so you know the value of having people in your court, on your side, rooting for you. And so, like, thank you. Thank you for being so incredibly awesome. Seriously, the best listeners on the planet. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I also want to give a shout out. The podcast has been in the care of an amazing podcast producer, Enrique, and I want to give a super shout out. He's given me some really great guidance. If you're watching over on YouTube, you may have noticed that the video quality has improved and that hopefully we're not as shaky and things like that. Enrique is just giving me really great guidance. And I want to share that with you. One, because I just want to high five Enrique, because a lot of people won't offer that kind of guidance and the suggestions. And so I want you also, conscious investor, understand like how important it is to invite people into your life and to give them that space, that bandwidth, the invitation to speak truth and expertise into your life, to receive it, and then to do something with it. There's still more improvements that need to be done. And it's really great knowing that I have an awesome podcast producer who can speak that into my life. And then I can figure it out. And the show just continually improves. I know that that is such a long introduction. I have two other really important things that I want to share with you, but I want to wait till the end because I know some of you are like, Julie, I wanted to hear about sleeping at night because I'm not sleeping at night. So let's go ahead and let's dive on in. And at the end, I'm going to share a couple of other really incredible opportunities with you. Wow, I don't even know where to start. I think that you remember that I was recording guest episodes from my friend's co-work space, gorgeous co-work space, down almost 2 hours away from my house because the power went out for an entire day. Happened to be on what I call podcast recording day. And I'm like, I cannot reschedule with some of these amazing guests. Like our schedules are really complicated. And in that process, it wasn't just a power outage. Now, I am probably going to get all teary-eyed multiple times during this episode because it's still really, really sensitive. And this is still an unresolved situation. And I'm no longer losing sleep over it, but I lost a lot of sleep. So just to recap, if you don't remember the situation, on a Wednesday night, it really was a stormy night, I posted this picture. Our trees were just swaying around. We had this massive windstorm in North Idaho. Now, this isn't Wednesday night like, last week. This is some time ago now. And our power went out. And we've had power outages. I'm sure you've had power outages also. But, typically it's going to be on in a few hours. We went to bed. We're like, okay, well, let's just go to bed and maybe the power will be back on in the morning. Super Rad Steve had a flight to catch for a really great trip. And in that process, we wake up in the morning and I woke up throughout the night and the power still wasn't on. So you can already tell I wasn't sleeping very well. And I'm like, well, this is really fascinating. We wake up and no power. All right, I scramble. I figure out I'm going to go down to Post Falls. I'm going to, set up shop with the kids who are not in school because school is canceled because of the power outage. And we're going to go down to Post Falls together and record. Steve's going to take his flight. But wait, Super Rad Steve misses his flight because there's this unexpected road construction and he misses the flight. I know you get this, conscious investor, by 4 minutes. That's it. 4 minutes. He got there. He scrambled down. The gate closed. 4 minutes to him arriving at his gate. So that really, there's so much more to his story. But what happens, so that was our Thursday, was really traveling and podcasting, navigating that. Power comes back on. Okay, everything's fine. We can catch our breath. Friday, I go to pay bills and I log into my, bank account to pay the bills. And I notice that things are not right in the bank account. I'm like, what is going on? This is crazy. And in that process, what I discovered, it started to unravel. I could feel initially I'm like, okay, let me just move some money around so nothing's in a deficit. And let's just like figure this out, what's going on. And I figure it out. But it's like pulling that string on your clothes where you think you could just pull it and break it and it's going to snap off and be no problem. No, and you pull it, it just keeps coming. That's the way this was. I start going down the rabbit hole and it starts just unraveling so fast. And it's so complicated and so frustrating. It turns out that somebody actually hacked into our QuickBooks account and they did some fraudulent activity, which QuickBooks said, hey, there was fraudulent activity on your accounts. And yet QuickBooks isn't taking any responsibility for this. So I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty details, but somebody stole a lot of money from us. And it's like, and they're getting away with it. As at this point, weeks later, it looks like they will get away with taking this money. That was my Friday. Steve's gone. I'm getting things back together, trying to pay bills, and just this is all unraveling. And I don't like lying. I don't like cheating. I don't like stealing. I just don't like especially any of that. I don't just be people of character. And in this process, Friday night, I was so stressed out. I was so anxious. Saturday night, stressed out, so anxious. And I wasn't sleeping, couldn't sleep. And what I did was, and I think we spoke about this on a recent episode, where I did what I call the worry loop, where we start out and it's like all hell is breaking loose. The sky is falling. Whatever you want to put in, zombie, apocalyptic world, like in time, whatever, like the most scary situation, right? We all have our like scary situation where we think that's the worst case scenario. And in my mind, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. And so that's where the cycle starts. And then it kind of, you start to get a little bit of clarity. And for me, this is where the power of my faith comes into play, right? It's like, okay, the worry cycle starts with the catalyst of like, what happened? Boom. And then, but the reason that's so scary, right, is because of fear, doubt, insecurity. It's what we're assigning that whole entire situation. It's what we're imagining. And I have a really great imagination. And I have discovered that most of us have really great imaginations when it comes to the worst case scenario. And it makes sense because that is a protective mechanism that God created us with. Like, we can look and we can see predators out there, or modern day times, we're looking as we're driving and we can see. So I almost backed into somebody recently. Steve's like, hey, pay attention. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Right. So we have that. If Steve hadn't said something, it was fine. But, it's like something could have happened. Right. So we have this, we want to avoid those negative situations. And so what ends up happening with this is that we play into that primitive brain. We allow our imagination to go crazy because we think we need to do this because it's going to protect us. But it actually depletes all of our creativity, all of our resources, like our actual nutritional resources in our body actually start to shift and change. Everything changes, and it's not for the better necessarily in these modern times in particular. And so I would start there. My imagination would go crazy. And then I'd realize there's nothing I can do about it. It's completely out of my control. And then I would hit this point and literally, I memorized Psalm 23 when I was in kindergarten. And then my kids memorized it when they were children. And I go back to Psalm 23, right? And it's like, I picture myself of like, okay, well, the good shepherd, God has me. He leads me beside, still waters, and he gives me a place of peace. And okay, even at the table of our enemies, right? So I'm like, okay, even in this situation where somebody is stealing from us and doing wrong things to us, you are sovereign. You are in control. So that's where I would land. And then I would doze off into sleep. And then I'd wake up. And what do you think happened with the moment I woke up? freak out moment, right? I'd wake up right into that moment. And so I've run this cycle, and I think that we all have a worry cycle in our minds. I have one of my best friends I was talking to yesterday. Actually, I've spoken to two really close friends, friends of years, for different reasons. They reached out. They were going through some hard times, right? And they had their worry cycle. One had to do with, teenage kids, right? Like, I'm in the teenage throes of things. Like, I get the teenage thing. And so, we're talking about that, and we're talking about, like, the imagination and where is that going, and where does faith come into that, since she's a friend of faith. And then I'm talking to another friend, and it has to do with a real estate investment, and how is that going to go? And we're working through that worry cycle. And so I know it's not unique to me. And I want to encourage you, before I give some practical strategies, right? I want to encourage you to raise your level of awareness to what is my worry cycle? What is happening? And so the next time something happens, and start with something small that is actually kind of insignificant. Like, you might not want to, really, I mean, a lot of life over the last several years of my own personal development, God used all that to prepare me to navigate the situation. Even though I lost sleep over it, I definitely did better than I would have done if this would have happened, say, a decade earlier. so, so you want to, like, start with something small, something gentle. What's ruffling your feathers, getting under your sleeves? It might be, oh my gosh, my spouse is doing this annoying thing, or responding in this way, or some type of friction with one of your kids, or a coworker, or maybe it's just like every time you go to the grocery store. This is one of Super Rad Steve's pet peeves, by the way. He doesn't like going to a particular grocery store, which is the one I prefer, because, like, every time I go there, there's a line at the checkout. And so those are the opportunities to actually just take notice of yourself, to take notice of your internal landscape, and to say, okay, what am I noticing about myself? Where am I feeling this in my body? What are the thoughts going through my head? Like, what am I actually thinking? Am I taking this personally? Am I maybe being selfish and thinking the world revolves around me and things should be done my way? Or am I taking it personally because that person edged me out of the line at the grocery store? Am I, right? Feel all the feelings. Walk yourself through it in that moment. Raise your level of awareness. Start looking around and see, like, watch, how are other people responding to this? Like, what is the sentiment in all of this? It's a very interesting experiment. And actually, if you choose to take this on as an experiment, it will really support you in just being able to kind of step outside of yourself and see things from a different vantage point, which is, it's honestly fun, and I find it very interesting. I will say that after the weekend, Steve arrived home, and I felt like having him back home, that also just helped me just, like, really decompress. So Sunday night when he got home, actually, he didn't even get home Sunday night. He got home at like 3 a.m. on Monday. So, but once he got home, it was just more like, okay, I don't have to shoulder all of this alone. And so even if you're not married or in a committed, partnership, like, you can also know that, like, who are my people? Who can I, like, my two close friends that reached out, right? Like, who is it that I can reach out to so that I know that I am not alone? Yes, I have faith. I'm vertically aligned, and I know that God is always with me. And God is really rad and gives us people around us and in our life to actually give us that physical hug that we need, or to just sit with us physically. And that is sometimes what we really, really need. So that's a pretty extreme situation. Just to kind of close the narrative on that, and to share ultimately how, like, how we're going to sleep at night. I do want to say that I have taken a perspective, a posture of, yikes, that person stole from us. And Super Rad Steve and I very firmly believe that everything that we have, our house, our cars, our health, our everything we have, yes, we do our part for it, but we believe it's God's. And so I'm like, it's our money, yes. And actually, God's money. Like that's why we tithe and we contribute and do things with our money that's maybe beyond us personally because we have a greater belief. And so I'm just kind of like, I pity that person because I know it looks like on the surface they stole from us, but ultimately they're stealing from God. And I just personally would never want to cross that line. So maybe that helps you. And Steve and I also have taken a posture of, you know, it was a chunk of money, but it wasn't such a chunk of money. Like it's never fun to lose money, and it was a chunk of money. That would have made for a really great trip, right? But at the same time, we're both looking at that as it really exposed a lot of vulnerabilities, and it's really brought to light just some of the areas where our own personal systems were, just kind of getting sloppy. And so this is really like raising our level of awareness to, work together. And if it's helpful for some of you, we actually have decided not one of us is going to do the personal finances. So it's not going to be Super Ed Steve or Julie. We've both done that at different points. We're actually going to just have like a day and it's not an entire day, but just like we have an appointment once a month where we're going to sit down, we're going to reconcile the accounts, we're going to pay bills, we're going to be aware, we're going to have the conversations. And then wow, everything is so much easier. So hopefully that's almost a bonus, and that should have been an episode in and of itself. So, but you might not be sleeping at night. And so here's the other element is that during the daytime, we can, a lot of times we will fill, and this is another way, let me back up, sorry. This is another reason why we might not be sleeping at night. And I've noticed this in myself, and I've noticed this since this whole experience of getting robbed. And so it really does all dovetail together. But I noticed that my schedule can be so demanding, so filled with really important things that I don't have time to actually process. And our mind is going to find a way to process whether we like it or not. So maybe, and as always, I'll throw myself under the bus. You might be waking up at 2, 3 in the morning, and you might, have a difficult time going back to sleep because your mind starts racing. I know I've experienced this where I start thinking about, I got to make sure I do this with my guy, and I got to make sure little miss has that. And wow, did I return that call to that person? Did I do this? Did I do that? And I start running through that cycle of the productivity cycle. And what that sheds light on is that I am not taking time to close up those cognitive loops during the daytime. And so a lot of us, we will have our calendar, we'll have our checklist, we'll have whatever it is that we are using as our guide for that day. And we will go through and we'll finish most of those tasks. And maybe even if we finish, we don't have something that demonstrates to our brain, to our subconscious mind, hey, close that top cognitive loop up so that it's closed. There is no opening here. You don't even have to think about it anymore. Because what happens is our brain just keeps cycling over and over and over again. It's like as if you would leave a browser tab open on your computer, and I happen to have several open right now. Some of those tabs can actually go dormant. I might need to hit refresh before I do something on that website. Actually, case in point, right? If you're on a financial banking type website, they will actually log you out and you'll have to log back in. You go through that process. So our brain needs to get logged out. Our brain needs it for us to intentionally say, hey, shut it. We're done. Shut it down. You don't need to do that. You finished, you completed that task. And this is why some people love so much like doing the massive strike through on their to-do list or checking something off on the calendar. Like people enjoy that. It's not just a dopamine fix. It's like giving energy back into your body because you're like, oh, I just closed that tab and now I have that much more energy to put into other things. So having a ritual, having a process when you are doing tasks, any type of tasks or activities to allow yourself to be very clear. And it could be as much as that strike through or the check off, that could do it. But if you're not doing something that you could actually do something very small to celebrate. Like you could even just simply say aloud, hey, awesome job. You just wrapped that up. You're all done. Something to actually let your brain know we are finished, done. All right. So other reasons, and I'm looking down, I wrote some notes down here. I do want you to know that your mind is going to find a way to process things, whether you like it or not. So finding a practice that allows you to close out those cognitive loops is absolutely imperative. I need to add this, and that is that if you were unable, if like a lot of us are tackling projects that are going to be ongoing projects, so dissecting those projects into smaller, like partition them into smaller chunks so that you can know, I'm done with this part's done. And that way your subconscious mind isn't trying to play out the entire task, the entire project all at once. Your brain is like, oh, we finished this. And then next time we're going to work on this part, set it aside. Next time we're going to work on this part, and we can set it aside. It's a really important thing. Here are some practical, tangible, strategic tactics, all those buzzwords that you can do that will support you in working through this brain cycle so that you can sleep at night. First of all, can we please do an activity audit? We've spoken in the past of doing time audits. And so I want to encourage you to go back. Just please Google Conscious Investor podcast time audit. You'll probably see 3 or 4 episodes come up. So I'm not going to talk about auditing your time, but I do want you to think about auditing your activity, looking at your actual schedule and saying, what am I actually scheduled to do in a day? Is that reasonable or is that too much? What am I doing that is not on my calendar? Because most of us will end up doing activities that are not on our calendar. So we want to look at all of the activities that we are participating in, and we need to see, is this the highest and best use of my time? Do I need to be doing this activity? Let me put it this way, this might land with you, conscious investor. Do I have a belief that I must be the one doing this activity because I'm the only one who can do this? Do I have a deeper belief that I'm the one who has to do this activity because I can't trust someone else to do this? Am I the only one who can do this activity because I haven't found somebody to do this activity yet and I need to? There are very few things that only you can do. Nobody else can feed your body, actually digest the nutrients and things like that. So there are so many things that we naturally will say, oh, only I can do this. I have to do this. And we'll probably even roll our eyes a little bit. But in all actuality, that's our ego coming out. And a lot of times we're like, it's just easier if I do it because I know how to do it. So we need to look at our activities and we need to see if there is a gap between what we're doing and what we need to offload. Maybe we do need to slow down so we can train up, raise up someone else to be able to do the activities that we need to release from our care. So those are some, one, start with an activity audit. And that also comes in play with what I call the responsibility audit. Right? Am I actually responsible for this? So a lot of times people are doing activities that are not their activities. And they're usually doing it because all of the other reasons we just spoke about, it's easier. I know how to do it. I don't trust other people. There is a deeper belief that is going through there. Sometimes we're even afraid. Oh, my boss needs this done. It's got to get done. I don't really trust my other teammates to do this, so I better just get it done. Actually, was that your task? I get that we're on a team and we do need, but are you taking responsibility for someone else's actions, or are you supporting that person and saying, How can I support you in keeping the ball in their court? It's so important that we ensure that we are supporting people in their autonomy instead of taking responsibility for them and taking it off of their plates. That's not the nice thing to do in all reality. So, case in point, my guy, he had a lunchtime detention because he was tardy, and he's made us late to school several times. Apparently, obvious to everyone else, right, at the school system. But guess who? Guess what? We didn't get mad at him. He took ownership. He did tell us. The school didn't tell us. He's the one. He's like, hey, this is what happened. Here's how I'm handling it. You guys don't need to do anything. I'm going to wait. And he walked through. I'm so proud of him. He's like, hey, I'm going to wake up earlier so that we can leave earlier and I won't have this happen again. And so that tells me, great. He's taking ownership. He's taking personal responsibility. I don't need to say anything corrective. There's nothing to correct at that point. Now I can just support and encourage. Like, great. That sucks that, that was a situation that you put yourself in. And I'm glad that you're figuring this out. And, let me know if I can help you out some further. So we can support the people in learning how to self-regulate and learning how to see where they need to, step up their level of responsibility. A few other areas that can really help us with sleeping at night, and I'm going to kind of buzz through these maybe somewhat quickly. Stress management. So there are lots of, I'm not going to get into the weeds on stress management. There's a lot of literature out there. I mean, we could do that through our diet, our nutrition, through our exercise, through meditating, through somatic exercises. Like, there are so many ways where we can manage our stress. I would encourage you to start with this and just say, like, do I have a way that I manage my stress or that I can manage my stress? And if you don't have some type of system, process, or plan for stress management, that right there is a fantastic place to start. Start looking things up. There are so many options out there, and sample them and have fun with it. It should be so much fun because it's going to help you. I also want to encourage you, for me, faith, being vertically aligned with God is really powerful in my life at reducing my stress and allowing me to sleep at night. So, evaluate. Sometimes, you've heard me say it before, sometimes we're dismissive of a faith that we were taught when we were kids because there is spiritual abuse in the world, and there are people that use that to manipulate. And but it's not just in the spiritual space, it's in all spaces. So it's not unique, but sometimes that damages us. And so I just want to encourage you that if you're struggling in the area of faith, I just want you to consider saying, am I taking someone else's opinion and what other people said about God, or am I trying on my own to get to know God so I can hear what he has to say for himself, type thing, right? Like, it's a great thing to just not let other people speak on behalf of God. Like, God's really sovereign, very much in control. And, I'm pretty sure he'd like to maintain his own reputation, but a lot of people soil that reputation. So I would just encourage you, if faith is something that you struggle with, and there are a lot of different faith and belief systems out there. But I am very specifically speaking to those of you who you were raised in a church setting and it was harmful, and that's just left a stigma in your mouth. Maybe just go back and revisit and say, like, all right, I'm an adult now. Younger me didn't have the capacity to navigate any of that because I didn't have the tools, the knowledge, the resources to be able to do so. But I'm an adult now, and I can navigate this on my own. Two final things: acceptance. That really helped me sleep. I realized in my whole debacle, I'm like, I can't do anything about this. I can't. The QuickBooks team is a nightmare. We'll be walking away from QuickBooks. If you have a suggestion of where we go, we are all ears, because we will completely sever ties with QuickBooks because it's been such a horrible company to work with through this debacle. And I am very clearly stating that publicly because has been a horrible experience. And I cannot even imagine if this was like a much greater amount of money that was stolen. I just can't even imagine because they've hung us out to dry. So I'm like, I will have nothing to do with a company that won't support, its patrons. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. But having a high level acceptance of, in this case, my lack of control allowed me to sleep at night. It's like, I can't do anything about it. Like, the best thing I can do is to actually sleep. And then the final area, and I've spoken about this, there's a podcast episode on sleep hygiene and routines. But a lot of times we have these great morning routines, but we also need to have an end of day routine, a sleep routine that closes down our day. So for me, like, I have a very clear, routine. Like, I will take a shower, I will brush my teeth, I'll put my pajamas on, right? And I'll say goodnight to my family, make sure doors are locked, and I will go to bed. Yeah, Super Red Steve also make sure the doors are locked. I guess that's just part of me from when I lived alone. And then sleep hygiene is making sure that actual hygiene of where you are sleeping is good and intact. Like, is the environment where you are going to rest, like, a place where you can let down and rest? I think about how often I go for walks on my road and I turn up deer. They'll just all of a sudden bounce up out of the grass. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know you're there. Like, they found a place where they could bed down even in the middle of the day to rest. And it was a peaceful place. Your environment where you are going to rest should be a restful environment. Recently, I painted our bedroom. I'm like, actually, the color it was for years, and I painted it that color. I'm like, this is actually, I can't handle this anymore. It's actually feels loud and not calm to me. It used to feel so calm and tranquil, and now I'm like, it's too much. So I painted it. If you need to take that type of drastic measure, do it. Because guess what? I absolutely love, as a Super Red Steve, we love the bedroom. It now has this whole different peaceful vibe to it. When's the last time you bought yourself some new sheets? Right? So you want to make sure, buy yourself some new sheets. Take care of your bed. Maybe you need a new mattress. Don't neglect that. I know it's that grown-up money. We don't want to spend money on a mattress, but it actually is going to improve your sleep. Recently, we're going through climate change during fall, where it's just like spring. Sometimes it's warm, sometimes it's cool, and so you don't know what to expect, but I'm just cracking our window just a little bit just to get that little crisp, fresh air coming on in. And so just knowing what is going to serve me in allowing me to sleep really well. You may even be that person like me where I like making the bed in the morning because it looks pretty and it's neat and tidy, and it's the first task and you're done, and it's like a win. Start the day with a win. But I actually think I like it more because at nighttime, I get to pull back the covers. And to me, psychologically, that's part of the whole entire process. It's part of that sleep hygiene and the sleep routine. It's I'm peeling this back and I'm getting inside my bed, and this is so comfortable. So these are several ways where you can definitely improve your sleep. And I want to know how it works for you. Don't be a stranger. I know that you're not, but send me a message. Let me know if you have more to add to this. Let me know if there are things that you've tried that have been really helpful, and if this is serving you super well. I would absolutely love that. Now, in conclusion, I told you that I had a couple of other things I wanted to offer you, but I was going to wait to the end because I wanted to get into the content. And I want to remind you that the Conscious Investor Growth Summit tickets are on sale. They are selling, and you cannot even fathom. Wow, it feels so good. And I'm going to share with you that most events, especially events in their first couple of years, it's nobody buys tickets until the very end. And it's extremely stressful because you have a lot of money as an event organizer and owner. You have a lot of money on the line. And most events are not money-making events. Just to give you some perspective, most events, they're very happy to break even. And that is a growth summit. It's I just want to break even because the whole summit is about serving. And then most people, they will make their money on selling into a mastermind or selling a product, right? So they're doing an upsale at the event. So I want to remind you, the growth summit is not a place of sales. It is a place of service, meaning, and contribution. And so you can get your rock bottom ticket price tickets right now, super early bird tickets. And what we did was, hey, there's a certain number of super early bird tickets that are available. And when they're gone, they're gone. And then the ticket price will go into the next bracket and so on and so forth. So there actually is like a number of tickets for every single category so that, we can break even, but also give you an opportunity to have the lowest price possible without having to, you guys are awesome. I respect you. I don't want to have to corral you and beg you. I just want to say you don't want to miss this. That every year I curate the speaker lineup. This speaker lineup this year is different than the previous 2 years. And it is very different. And I'm so excited about the speaker lineup because it's really built every year. The speaker lineup is built based off of intuition. I have conversations with so many of you conscious investors, and I have an idea of what's going on in life, and I pray about it. And it's wow, these are the people that I believe need to speak this year in a way because I believe that they are going to serve you very, very powerfully. So you don't want to miss out. I promise you will have FOMO. We're building in some extra experiences this year, especially for our VIPers. It's really going to be so much fun. Excursions, hikes, it's going to be so rad. So you don't want to miss it. And most of all, this is what you know. I love meeting you. I love meeting you in person. I love the opportunity to get to know you. This year, I actually have an event coordinator who's running the entire event, which means I get to be more present with you. And that's why I hired her. I'm I want to be more present. I had FOMO last year. I'm I want to go hang out with all these awesome people. So come, let's hang out in person. There are only 150 people. It's a small space because I'm super into small spaces right now, which leads me to my final thing. Small spaces. I have coming up on November 9th, I have a small space opportunity in the privacy of my home. I actually recently coached from my couch, if you will. I had somebody come in person, and it was really, truly an amazing experience. I really, really enjoyed it. That just gave me that impetus. I need to push play, and I need to have some experiences that you can come to from the privacy of my couch. Hey, come, it's tranquil. I've got lots of plants. It's really peaceful in there. Just come, and we're going to have the wish fulfillment experience. So if there's something that you're I know that I want to bring this to life and I don't know how, it feels out of reach. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to execute on this. That is what we are tackling. And I'm going to give you, by the end of the day, you will have a blueprint to be able to take your wish and launch it to reality. And that's what that is. That's in your heart for a reason. Your DNA pre-qualifies for you for that. And so I want to support you. Super low price. Oh my gosh. I can't even believe it. If you're one of my coaching clients, your jaw is dropping every time I say this. It's $97 for the entire day. And I say that because my private coaching clients pay substantially more for 60 to 90 minutes. So I want you to know there's a tremendous value. And one of the reasons that there is that value for this first cohort is that it's the first time I've done this. And I like to honor people who are in a sense, beta testing this new framework in this environment situation. So kudos to you. There are only 5 more slots. I have 1 slot filled. There are 5 more slots. If you're interested in that slot, send me an email, julie@julieholly.com, and just put in the subject line, wish fulfillment experience. And that is how the first seat got taken. Somebody sent me an email after listening to the podcast. We messaged about it, someone that I know, and that person is involved. So conscious investor, there's a lot going on, a lot of exciting things. Sleep is really imperative to your health. So I want to encourage you to, go back, evaluate, do those audits, do the activity audit, the responsibility audit, check out your stress management, check your faith, check, your level of acceptance in life, and then double check your sleep hygiene and routines. Like, these things are going to serve and support you in really catapulting your life to the next level. I appreciate you so much. If this episode served you, if it supported you, then please take a moment. Let me know. Leave an honest rating and or review over on Apple Podcasts. Even if you don't listen there, they're the only one where you can actually leave that type of information. Make sure we're connected on social platforms. And please take a moment to share this with somebody that you think would benefit from it. Until next time, I'll see you on Thursday.